Capitol Report is honored to welcome for the first time Deborah Vizzi, who is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, a terrific organization. Welcome.
Thank you. My pleasure being here.
Tell folks what the Community Food Bank of New Jersey is.
Largest anti-hunger, anti-poverty organization in the state. Unbelievable work. Delivered 44 million pounds of food last year.
And your predecessor?
Kathleen DeChara.
She was there just a couple of years, right?
Yeah, a couple of years.
Several decades.
40 years.
Yeah.
Amazing run.
Yeah. Put this in perspective for us, Deborah, for Raf and I and our audience on Capitol Report. The number of New Jerseyans who are going hungry as we speak.
Yeah, 1 million people hungry. And
1 million out of how many altogether?
Well, quite a bit in our population.
8 million,
8 million or so.
It's not that, you know, it's
it's a significant
percentage.
amount. And 400,
Children.
yeah, and 400,000 are children. 1 in 5.
Yeah,
1 in 5
20%.
children.
That's right.
Put this in perspective. For those children, for those families, what are they going through?
Well, you know, the challenge in New Jersey and the challenge for the nation is that we're thinking of hunger in a very different way. When we were kids, we thought of hunger as a body type or something that we saw overseas. And hunger is very different today. It's a 365-day-a-year problem. And hunger on a child looks very different today than it did perhaps in the memory that we have of what that looks like.
And by the way, we're sorry for interrupting. You understand this because you went hungry as a kid.
I did. I was in a shelter, so I really get what that was like. I grew up in the foster care system,
right.
yeah. And an arduous journey at best, the longest marathon in my life, and certainly a different lens. I think Kathleen and I, you know, come from a different lens, but ultimately ended up in the same place. The children of New Jersey really need incredible attention around this issue because this is probably the first time in our generation where we're seeing a food insecure child, a hungry child, perhaps be obese.
But Deborah, can I ask you this?
Be obese. That means really unhealthy.
Correct.
Right. And some people don't understand how you can be obese and have, but and you can explain that in a second. But I want to get back to the people who are hungry in New Jersey.
Right.
You know, because there is, I think, an idea that if you're hungry is because you're unemployed,
right,
or because you're mentally ill, but that's not the case.
It's not. It's not. About 50% of the families or the individuals that we see are working. There's somebody in their family that's working. That's a large percentage.
That's amazing.
And I think what's the biggest view for us in terms of what we do is how do we help families make better choices around, one, what they need to prioritize in, because if I'm a family who needs to bring my child to a doctor, that's going to be my priority, and not necessarily carving into my food budget. And in addition, they're going to make healthier or not healthier choices depending on what's in their budget and what's available.
Right. So it's a question of, you know, making choices between necessities. But, you know, your organization can just do so much, right? You can distribute food to people who don't have food. But what about the underlying structures of society? How can you don't deal with that? The government deals with that. What can be done? For example, should the minimum wage be raised to $15? Is that one of the solutions? What are some of the other solutions?
Well, I think there's a myriad of problems. I mean, and we're one extreme consequence of poverty. So in that regard, hunger. It's one example of an extreme consequence of poverty. And I think that one of the things that certainly we need to look at as a nation is, number one, how do we help families make enough money, provide for their family, have a movement that really addresses that issue? And then secondly, how do we make sure that that movement really incorporates not only the quantity of food that we put out as a food bank, but the quality of food that's nutritious and healthy? That's a really important piece because hunger is not only a social problem, it's a health problem. And we're seeing the manifestation of that in so many ways. Diabetes, celiac disease, a number of things that we see in volume, failure to thrive diagnoses throughout the state, for children, for seniors. These are things that are present today in this country, in this state, that we really need to address at a core level. There are things we can do without, but you can't go without eating. And that's a really significant issue. And
I'm sorry, finish your point, Pat, I'm sorry.
Well, and I also think that, as a country and as a state, we philanthropically think of hunger during times when the issue of eating and holiday are at its height. But the most vulnerable time is in the summer, when children are out of school, don't have breakfast and lunch, and seniors are particularly vulnerable during that time as well.
So let's do this. If we could, Joanna, could we put up the FoodBank's website literally while we're talking to you? Because it's important that people know you're not just, there are a lot of organizations, but your organization is the most prominent, the most significant, and impacts the most people. And it's important people know how to reach out for your organization.
But not only reach out, but how to reach out to help. How do people reach out to help your organization?
Well, I think there's a number of ways. Last year we had 40,000 volunteers walk through the food bank.
That's right.
It's an astounding number of volunteers. But people often ask, well, I may not be able to get to your food bank. How can I help in my community? Food drives, you can do that. There's someone on your street that perhaps has been laid off. They may need a meal, a senior. A child, think we all have children. Think if you only had to feed some of them and not all of them. There's birthday parties and festivities that we have for our children. Perhaps utilizing that as a charitable mission. Instead of bringing gifts, bring something for the food bank, bring something for the hungry.
Let me ask you this. You're talking about a lot of what individuals can do and what nonprofits like yours, and you have a whole range of private partnerships, such as?
We have a ton of private partnerships amongst, 1,000 partner agencies throughout the state that basically, if you want to look at the food bank almost as the Federal Reserve, that we funnel through our banking money in terms of our food to all of those partner agencies throughout the state. Some are nonprofits, yes.
And how do you get your food? How do you buy your food?
Well, a number of ways. We get some donated, some through the USDA, some through donation, through retail establishments. So there's a whole host of a mix that makes that all work.
And finally, in the time we have left, Deborah, this is our responsibility, is it not? All of us.
It is. Because if we want to make a better world for our children, this is a key piece to moving forward. Kids can't concentrate. I can tell you in my own experience. When you're hungry, we all have been hungry at times. We can't even get to the next assignment, let alone the next day. And kids are going through this every single day in this state. And it's very important that we really take a look at it.
It's so interesting. Ref and I are interviewing all the candidates who say they want to run for governor or in 2017. We'll make sure that we ask them about this issue and their opinions on it and their policies on it. But we thank you for joining us. It won't be the last time on Capitol Report. Thank you, Deborah.
Great. Thank you. My pleasure.
Stay right there. That is it for this particular edition of Capitol Report. For my esteemed colleague, Raphael Piedmont, I'm Steve Adubato. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week.
New Jersey Capitol Report is a production of the CAUCUS Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence, and 13 for WNET. Funding for this edition of New Jersey Capitol Report has been provided by Valley National Bank, the New Jersey Education Association, Bloomfield College, Barnabas Health, Delta Dental of New Jersey, Johnson & Johnson, and by Josh S. Weston.